The iLet from Beta Bionics is one of the most innovative insulin pumps on the market. It only requires one setting to start, a user's weight. The company's rapid-fire updates are impressive. In less than 2 years since its release, it has improved its pump design, released a sleek new follower app, and expanded its continuous glucose monitor integrations. And with tubeless technology in the works, as well as a bi-hormonal pump and a fully closed-loop algorithm, Beta Bionics aims to become major competition in the US market. Welcome to the show. I'm Justin. I have type 1 diabetes, and on here I talk all things diabetes tech, news, and management with industry leaders, physicians, and those using the technology themselves. Episodes release every Monday on YouTube in video and on all podcast platforms. Follow where you want. And I put up videos on social every week. You can follow me at diabe_tech. Joining me today is Mike Mensinger, Chief Product Officer at Beta Bionics, who has a fascinating history in diabetes technology. He was involved with releasing the Dexcom Follow feature and the innovative InPen smart insulin pen. Mike and I dive deep into the state of the iLet Bionic Pancreas, including its upgraded screen and form factor, its Libre 3 Plus CGM integration, and the all-new Blue Circle Follower app. Also, to my surprise, we dive into Beta Bionics' plans for a tubeless pump option, get more information on the bi-hormonal pump, and hear more about what a fully closed-loop algorithm could look like on this pump. If you are an iLet user or you're just excited about this technology, let me know what you think in the comments on YouTube. Also, make sure you follow our newsletter. It goes out every other week on the latest in diabetes technology news and what's going on Diabetech. There's a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link to our free Discord channel where you can interact with other Diabetechies like yourself. Keep in mind that anything you hear on this podcast or any of my channels is not medical advice and is for educational purposes only. Always consult with a physician before making changes to your healthcare. Mike, it's so great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Great to be on.
Of course. I know that you have a long history in diabetes technology working with this stuff. So before we get into Beta Bionics, can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be in the diabetes space since 2003. So this is my third startup. The first one was a little company you might have heard of called Dexcom. So I joined when there was 30 people there. That was a really fun journey there. And I left just after launching G6. And I did a startup with Sean Saint, the InPen at Companion Medical. So we launched that product, and then that company sold. And now fortunate to be here with Beta Bionics and very excited.
What would you say before coming to Beta Bionics? What endeavor of yours are you most proud of?
Gosh, such a hard question. I think one of the ones I'm so passionate about is remote monitoring, and just the impact that product had. It was such an unmet need for parents, for caregivers. We had so many stories from just the freedom it unlocked for kids. So they could finally go to sleepovers. They could finally go to camp like a normal kid. Parents didn't have to constantly ask, how are your sugars today? And it changed the conversation between parents and children. And caregivers, we had stories where, a brother had mowed a lawn, went low, went in the house, went unconscious, and the sister called the paramedics and they busted down the door to save their lives. So just so many tremendous stories came out of that technology. And it was such an easy software innovation when you think about it compared to developing a sensor or an insulin pump or anything else. But it had such an oversized impact. It was really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we've come even further since then, right? Like now people have their numbers on their watch. They get their numbers sent to their calendar, whatever. There's so many great products out there and software to see, your levels and trajectory and get alerts. And, I just was diagnosed 3 years ago. So I luckily didn't have to experience a time when people couldn't follow or I couldn't see it in all these areas. So it's incredible. And then InPen, I love the InPen. What was your involvement on that product?
So Sean and I came up with the idea together, launched the company, founded it, and then I didn't join right away, but I joined a few years after Sean got off the ground. So came in and built the mobile apps and all the cloud features. We got that to market and built the sales team, and it was an incredible journey to bring in the Dexcom sensor, and in addition to BGM, and then eventually, I was part of Medtronic for 3 years after acquisition, where I helped run the R&D program there for them.
Gotcha. Yeah, for everyone listening, if you don't know Sean Saint, he's the CEO of Beta Bionics, and he's been on the show to talk a lot about the pump. So if you want to get some more granular information on how the pump works, go listen to that episode. Let's kind of paint a picture of where Beta Bionics is now. What has it been? Almost 2 years since clearance. It's only been out for maybe like 20 months. What is the state of the pump right now? I know you just hit 10,000 users.
Yeah, we did that press announcement a few months back. So it's been growing like crazy. We've hit all of our goals. So much excitement. The product is so different than anything else in the market. We can get into that a little bit more. And the innovation we've been able to bring to the market in just shy of a year and a half here now is pretty astounding what the team's been able to pull off. We integrated G7 at the end of 2013. Then going into 2014, we're able to bring redesign our mirror app. So bring all of the pump features onto the phone for patients. They can see, their glucose, their insulin, all their meal announcements. No control yet, so you can't actually perform the pump control on the app yet. But that's something that we know is highly needed, highly requested. Remote monitoring system with Bionic Circle. So now you can see your glucose, your insulin, and your meal announcements if you're a parent or a caregiver. The pump. So we launched a black and white pump. The hardware was the basis of our bi-hormonal. So it had the space to support both insulin and glucagon, which the company was founded on. Obviously, the iLet is insulin only in this iteration, but we are working on that bi-hormonal configuration. But we were able to shrink the pump and add a color screen to it and enhance the alarms with a better speaker. So that in just over a year from product launch, I think is unheard of as well. We added the Libre 3 Plus support, and we were probably the last to start, but first to actually hit the market. So it's been quite a year. Super proud of the R&D team.
Yeah, well, spoilers to everything I have to ask you about, because you listed off
Sorry,
a lot of them. But I also love how open you are about them, because I do have just a bunch of questions on all of it, and it's exciting stuff. And what surprises me most is, like you said, like Beta Bionics is kind of the last pump company to really get in. There are some others in the works, but you've also brought in so many innovations so quickly. Like there's just surprise announcements all the time, and it's been impressive to watch. Are there any, like, just kind of back to the usage of the pump, what has been the response, or do you have any data points when it comes to what you're seeing in the success of this insulin pump?
Yeah, maybe it's helpful to describe what it is and how it's different from the other pumps.
Let's give everyone a reminder.
Give everyone some context here. So most of the hybrid closed loop systems on the market, you have to count carbohydrates. The doctor with you has to determine a basal rate, a sensitivity factor, a carb ratio, all of these parameters, and then those have to be optimized and tuned to get the most out of the product. iLet is very different. The goal of the product was to dramatically reduce burden and change the experience of diabetes. The phrase diabetes without numbers is one of the internal goals. It's not ever truly possible. You have glucose and everything else. But the idea of not having these internal variables that you have to be an engineer to optimize and tune in order to get good results. iLet, the first thing it is different than other products is you don't need any of those numbers. You don't deal with those numbers. You don't adjust those numbers. You start up on weight. So when the product is initiated, you enter your weight. It initiates a safe starting dose, and then it has 3 levels of learning: your basal, your correction, and your meal doses, and it has those algorithms built in, unlike the other systems in the market. So it's constantly learning you and adjusting to your needs, while it's automating all of the other functions like the other devices are. So the other major difference is the meal experience. So unlike a traditional product where you look at a meal, you have to estimate how many carbohydrates are in it, and then you put that carbohydrate number of grams into the product, into a meal bolus calculator. Our product's very different. We have, you either announce a usual breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or you can say it's a more or it's a less less than usual. So if you announce a usual, we learn what usual means for you, which is a range of meals. In, let's say, breakfast as an example, if you usually take 4 units for 50 grams of carbohydrates as an example, well, the system's going to learn that. It's going to give you 75% of that upfront, and then the correction controller is going to automate the additional needed insulin, if any, after the meal. And it fine tunes that balance. So you no longer have to strictly count carbohydrates and enter that number. It's much easier just to say, yep, that's my usual lunch, or hey, this is a little bit bigger. I'm going to announce that as a more than usual, or a less than usual. And then if it's something like a snack, you just don't announce at all. So it's a very, very different experience designed to lower the burden of diabetes.
What about like if I'm going to have a large snack, 45 grams, it's not nothing. It's something that I would announce typically. Are you saying people don't announce large snacks, or would they choose, breakfast and say less or something?
Yeah, if the carbohydrates is similar to one of your other meals, if that's similar to a usual breakfast for you, you can announce the usual breakfast for that large snack. If it's similar to a less than breakfast, announce it as a less than breakfast. You absolutely can announce if it lines up about the amount of carbohydrates as one of those buckets for you.
Okay. And what have been users' responses?
It's been a phenomenal response. It's so different. I mean, the best response has been there was an 8-year-old girl that said, for the first time in my life, today I forgot that I had diabetes. And that, I mean, it's tremendous, and it motivates everybody internally, because that was really the goal of the product, is to really lower burden. Unlike the other products, you can't manually correct. You can't go in and say, I want more insulin. We, some pumps in the market will correct once an hour. Others will do it a little more often. We correct every 5 minutes. So we're always correcting for you. You don't have to do that. In fact, you can't on the product. There's, the users who haven't responded well to iLet, a lot of them are either they're used to those knobs, used to the control. They want that. Their diabetes management strategy, they kind of know how to game the system better than an automated system can. They can anticipate their own needs. This is not that product. This product, it's if you want to lower your burden, think about diabetes less and still have really good outcomes, this is a great product. If you need that level of micro control, this is not the right product for you.
Yeah. Well, I love control, and I'm into DIY. I've used a couple of the systems. I'm about to try out Tandem for the first time, but I think it could be cool for me to try out Beta Bionics at some point, because the idea of releasing all of that control and making less decisions for me would be a cool experiment to take a lot of the thought process that I spend daily fine tuning, kind of putting that to the side and seeing what that feels like, and seeing what the cost benefits are. So maybe that's something I talk to Beta Bionics about. I know that Beta Bionics has been working with the University of Colorado Medical Campus, their primary care diabetes lab, to educate and encourage primary care doctors to use a pump like the iLet. And it makes sense. I know a lot of primary care doctors are afraid of short-acting insulin constantly throughout the day. Like, it's a little scarier for them. They're not as educated in diabetes management, especially type 1. Endocrinologists the accessibility to them is very low. People have to drive hours, right? So primary care is a really big area where we can, get people starting to use pumps. Has Beta Bionics been pushing or encouraging primary care to use their pumps more? Like, is there a strategy there for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've partnered with a few primary care doctors to show that primary care can handle this product. Pumps traditionally are very complicated. Just coming up, what is a carb ratio? What is a correction factor? How do I determine that? Obviously, there are clinical protocols to determine safe starting settings, but titration takes a lot of data interpretation. We have to look at your AGP report and look at your patterns of glucose. There's a lot of skill there. And if you don't see people with diabetes day in and day out, you don't develop that skill set, and it's hard to manage. So the characteristics of a product that would be successful in primary care is one that doesn't have those clinical variables that have to be determined initially and then constantly titrated and fine-tuned. And so starting up on weight, there you go. And then just the amount of carb counting education that goes into counting carbs and determining an exact carb number to enter in a pump is also a very difficult skill. It doesn't mean that patients don't need to be carb aware. You still have to know the difference between fat and carbohydrates and other things, and then be able to approximately size. Is this just a larger plate, but it's a salad versus, this is a plate of French fries. People with type 1 all know this, of course, but new users sometimes need to be taught nutrition. And so this relieves some of that burden, but not 100% of it.
This episode is sponsored by Omnipod. You guys know that staying connected to the tech world is important to me, but what's also important to me is my insulin pump. Omnipod 5 is tubeless and waterproof, which means I never have to disconnect from automated insulin delivery, even when I take a shower, go swimming, or go to the gym. Staying connected to my insulin pump means I'm spending more time in automated mode, which ultimately helps me spend more time in range. See if you're eligible for a 30-day trial by visiting omnipod.com/diabetic. On there, you'll see full safety and risk information and trial terms. Again, that's omnipod.com/diabetic. So Beta Bionics has about 300 employees now. And kind of what you were talking about earlier, listing off all the new upgrades and features, it's been impressive to watch there be announcement after announcement in such a short amount of time. How is Beta Bionics doing this? Like, what makes you different than the other people out there that are taking 2 years to make an iPhone app? Or announcing that a support of a CGM's coming and then a year later it comes. Like, how are you able to work so quickly and safely?
Yeah, great question. Why are they not working so quickly? I'm not going to speculate too much here, but I can speak a little bit to our formula, what we do. The first thing you need is a high value prioritized roadmap. And it sounds really easy, but you have to identify what are the things that are going to help the most people and make the biggest impact. But the harder part of that is actually looking at all the opportunities. And there's always a ton. You've mentioned the watch and other things. So there's a lot that we can do, but we have to say no or say not right now to the ones that you need to prioritize that. It's very tempting to say we can do all these things, but not giving your team focus really kills productivity. It's constant switching between priorities, and you don't end up getting anything done as efficiently. So that's kind of number one. Number two, you need to set up an environment to enable innovation. And this is usually where companies fall apart. So you need to clear the field for the team to not spend their time day to day on things that aren't value added. And it could just be as simple as purchasing processes or reviews or budgets or anything like that. You need to make that basically a non-thing for most of your developers so they can spend their time doing what matters, and that's really building great diabetes experiences. The quality system is a huge part to any medical device company. We all have regulations we have to follow. That can be easy to follow or hard to follow. And so how you set up your quality system, you can streamline things to be able to go quickly. But it's very difficult, especially for larger companies, to do that. And then the team is absolutely key. So you have to have a high functioning small team. So you have to have only people that want to be there, that are passionate about your mission and work very hard. And that's the number one reason for coming to work every day. And all the functions, not just the developers, need to have the same goals, because you work with quality, human factors, design, all these different groups. Everyone has to be rowing in the same direction. And so you need a leadership team that holds everybody accountable to that innovation roadmap. And then, you need a results first culture. So really everyone has to say, we want to be the best. We're here to deliver these innovations. People are counting on this. They're waiting. We're going to make their lives easier. And you have to enable the team to do that and support them when problems come up. Sometimes it's simplifying it and reducing the scope of what you're trying to do and eliminating the things that are lower value, even within the bigger bucket that you're trying to deliver. So that's kind of my essential formula that I've followed in my career.
This pump, is it only available in the US right now?
Yes, and that's a conscious decision. We've talked about going to
That's what I
Europe
was
because this could
thinking.
help a lot of people and other markets. And I did this in prior companies, and it basically, you have to stop innovating and just focus on translating that baseline, bringing all the strings in, meeting all the different regulations of the different markets that you want to go to. And it really becomes about compliance and language translation and things like that. We made the decision that we're still early. We wanted to bring a lot of the innovations that we talked about, support some of the newest sensors, the remote monitoring, the color pump, a lot of these innovations we wanted to build because you have to freeze things and go translate that and then take that product to another market. We wanted to be busy innovating right now, not expanding the market.
So you have a new pump
Mm-hmm.
already. What was the decision making behind coming out with a new version? And how was it done so quickly?
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious from kind of a user need when you look at ours next to the other one. We had a black and white screen, and there was some thinking about how that was an advantage potentially. But you want the smallest, most modern, easiest device you possibly can have. Users used to iPhones as your reference these days. It's a very tall order to live up to. So the color screen was pretty easy decision to make. And then making it small, fit in your pocket, as streamlined as possible. It's another device to carry, and minimizing, the day-to-day burden of your footprint on your body helps quite a bit. So it was pretty obvious to actually go that direction. But it is kind of bold to have all that development and investment in one product line and then have to obsolete it that quickly. And that was challenging to make that decision to actually do that.
Yeah, like did you reuse parts? Like I can imagine you had a stockpile of this other pump. Like were you able to use parts from the last pump and kind of include them in the new one so that you didn't
Yeah, fortunately, most of the design was reusable. As I said, there was a
Okay.
glucagon channel built in that was just blocked off because that was the bi-hormonal version of the pump. And they chose at that time not to size reduce the product. So the motor, the gear train, most of the electronics were all the same, more or less. And just whatever minor modifications had to be done to shrink the product and then add the color screen.
Okay. How much smaller is this?
It's about 20% smaller, but when you actually line them
Wow.
up next to each other, it's a dramatic, it feels much more dramatic than that. And then the color screen is the majority of the front of the product, so it feels more edge to edge like a modern device and phone. So the surface area of the screen is much, much larger for the front of the product.
Okay. And I know you included the chamber for glucagon in that first one. Why get rid of it? Or what was the reasoning behind having it on the first one?
Ed founded the company based on the bi-hormonal principle to have glucagon and insulin. And most of the research of the product up to a few years ago was done on the bi-hormonal system when the company decided to pivot and say, look, we have all these great algorithms. We have a unique startup experience. We have a unique meal announcement experience. Let's bring the insulin only to market while we're waiting for the drug to mature. Since then, as you probably know, we've licensed a drug from our partner Xeris. So now we have more of that under our control to be able to bring that glucagon to market that we needed to, that we didn't have that capability in the past. So we're pretty excited about the future of bi-hormonal, but that's why it was really built all for that bi-hormonal. And when we decided to go as quickly as possible to get through FDA, they minimized the changes in order to submit as fast as possible and get into the clinical studies.
Gotcha. Okay. And if people want to learn more about the bi-hormonal, Ed Damiano, the founder, came on the show and we dove real deep in also with the partnership with Xeris and talked about glucagon and how it works. That was so interesting. I'll put that in the show notes. Tell me about these alarms. What was the update with the speaker? And are they new alarms or are they just they sound different?
Yeah, it's the same alarms. It's just the product wasn't quite as loud, and even back in the Dexcom days, we always had users that were it wasn't loud enough to wake them up, and they would stick it into glass so it would vibrate. Giving the user, we do have choices of alarm volume, but we added a speaker that enabled the tone to go lower, which the human ear is able to hear a little bit better, and you perceive it as louder. and it actually increased the absolute volume. So that was
Okay.
one of in the first year of launch, that was one of the definite sources of feedback. We do constant surveys of users to understand what's great about your experience, what do you want to see improve, and that was on the list to improve for people.
And because most of the internals were the same, is that why you were able to move so quickly with this? Did the FDA, they just say, oh, it's the same thing, just smaller? Like, was that a faster process than adding new mechanisms?
Yes, I mean, the minute you touch the pumping, the safety criticality of your change goes up. So really, it's touching the display and the speaker, and then removing the dead space in the product. So some of those choices allows you to get through the other processes faster and get to market quickly. So we always consider that when deciding on scope.
Okay. And you brought support for the Libre 3 Plus CGM. This is Abbott's latest CGM that works with insulin pumps. I mean, I was surprised by how quickly you brought this out. Two other pump companies just brought support for Libre 2 Plus. You brought Libre 3 Plus. You skipped Libre 2. Why skip Libre 2 Plus?
Well, the Libre 2 Plus projects were conceived and started much, much earlier, and they were further along in the Libre 3 Plus, and that was really the intended target for the platform. We have heard that some users going on to Libre 2 Plus, but coming from Libre 3 Plus or Libre 3, they had to downgrade their experience on the sensor, and that wasn't a pleasant experience, and that became very difficult for other companies. So keeping on the smallest, the latest and greatest innovation, just makes the best experience possible for users. So why do Libre 2 Plus?
I had some higher ups from Eversense come on the show, and they mentioned that there has been a close relationship with Beta Bionics with testing in some way. Is Beta Bionics devoted to bringing Eversense support? Is that one of those wants or that are high up on the list, or something you'd like, but it's not as, doesn't take as much priority?
Yeah, I mean, we love what the team over there is doing. It's such a different product than anything else out there. Their 365-day indication they just got is a great innovation for patients to be able to go a full year. We absolutely, our goal is to support patient choice. Whatever sensor you like and you're comfortable with, we'd love to support and have you be able to use that. And that's our final destination. Just referring back to the roadmap, though, there are a couple of big rocks that we've put ahead of that integration. Like the patch pump, which we're working on, and the bi-hormonal system. There's some other things that we have ahead of it, but it's on the list and we will get to it.
Yeah, patch pump got me excited. I have that lower on the questions list, so we'll get back to that in a second. This new Bionic Circle app. Tell us about it. It's a monitoring app, right, for followers. Can you tell us about what that app does and what it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the patient's app is called the iLet app. That's your companion to your pump. And you can invite followers, 10 if you want, to keep an eye on your glucose, your insulin, and your meal announcements. The Bionic Circle is our Follow app equivalent. So the Bionic Circle app, it gives you a circle of support around your Bionic device. And the person has a separate app they would download and install. You get an invite through an email, which you tap on. It opens a link, helps guide you through the installation process, available on iOS or Android, and then you accept the invite. And now you're being shared with on the data. So you can follow several people if you want. Configure your alerts, very similar to Dexcom Share, where you can get alerts for low glucose, alerts for high glucose, things like that, out of range if you're not receiving signal anymore. So with that, it's a very similar experience, except that you also get to see the insulin delivery and when they announce meals, which is really important context.
One thing about the Libre 3 Plus is that it is unable, and Libre 2 Plus also, they're unable to connect to two devices at one time. They can only send that glucose reading to one device. So other pumps out there is no follow feature for Libre 2 Plus. What did you create the Blue Circle app also in anticipation of, well, we need to be able to share these numbers if parents are going to give their kid this device and they want to use Libre 3 Plus?
Absolutely. Yes. So, yes, on Dexcom, you can support multiple displays. So you can go to the Dexcom app in parallel with the iLet app, and then you can use the Dexcom Follow. But yes, Libre doesn't have that option since they support one connection at a time. So it was important for us to bring this to enable the Libre users. But also for the Dexcom users, now this is the only way to get your real-time insulin and meal announcement data in addition to your glucose.
Yeah, and these apps, the iLet app and the Blue Circle app, the companion app with the pump, the one that people are following, are these available on both Apple and Android?
Yes, we'd love to bring both of these to market at the same time. The Bionic Circle app came out a month after the iOS version.
Okay.
But yeah, they're both
for
available.
Android.
Yes.
Gotcha. What was the decision making behind that? You have other companies that aren't prioritizing Android. Why was it important to you to do that?
Well, if that's your choice of mobile device, then you're still a customer. So we need to support you. We don't want to make a judgment on what platform you need to use. We want to support your device. That said, Android is harder. Android is much harder. There's more manufacturers out there. There's different variants of the platform. There's more inconsistency. So the amount of development and testing and just troubleshooting differences from platform to platform and device to device, it does take more time and energy.
And you said you are considering or looking at bringing pump control to the Mirror app for pump users, yeah?
Yeah, that's absolutely something we want to do in the future. It makes a lot of sense. Discretion's a thing. You don't always want to call attention to yourself in the middle of colleagues or friends. So it's very discreet to pull out your phone and take the action. It's not something we offer today, but it's an important use case.
And what's even more discreet is using a smartwatch like an Apple Watch or Samsung Gear or Google Pixel. When you come out with smartphone control, will there be a tag-along smartwatch app on release, or is that something that would have to come after?
To be determined. Any control features likely going to have to go through the agency. So we may group those together. But there's another argument to say that there's not as many watch users as there are mobile app users. So it's a subset of the total population. We'd love to do the feature, but certainly it's less users on it. So we may choose to split those up, or we may put those together. We haven't determined that yet.
And I wonder, because there are already apps out there, there's the DIY Loop, Trio, which are DIY, but then there's also the Twist Pump, which is using the cleared version of DIY Loop. Because there are so many data points already, including in a soon-to-be FDA cleared, well, it's already FDA cleared, but a system that's going to be on the market that's cleared by the FDA, would that make it easier for you to get clearance for a smartwatch companion app? Because it's really just the watch just sends a message to the phone, so it's really just using the app.
Right. It certainly helps. There's a predicate out there, so you're able to at least point to that as something that's done it before. But you still have to pass all the cybersecurity. There's the human factors. You have to test that users aren't making errors in the face of your design. Maybe something is confusing. So there's still the same set of standards that you have to show. There's no problems there.
Today's episode is sponsored by T1D Exchange. You can directly make an impact on diabetes healthcare, treatments, and technology by participating in the T1D Exchange registry. It starts with a simple survey about your life with T1D, and it only takes about 15 minutes. After that, you'll have a personal portal with ongoing T1D study and survey opportunities. Plus, some of these studies even offer compensation. Signing up with the link in the show notes helps support my channel, and it allows me to continue putting out free content. You can sign up at t1dexchange.org/diabetic or click that link in today's show notes. Is Beta Bionics looking to create a fully closed loop algorithm for just the insulin-only system? Is that an endeavor that would be going alongside the bi-hormonal insulin glucagon, or are you just setting all of the fully closed loop hopes on that bi-hormonal pump?
Good question. To be determined. In the first year of launch, it's been an interesting story. There's the group of users that want to do as little as possible and get the best control they can. Then there's the users who have a control goal and they have to meet that and they're willing to put in extra work. And with fully closed loop, the best possible outcome you can get is to give your full meal bolus at time of the meal. The insulin's slower than your carbohydrates. That's the best you can possibly do. If you're waiting for a fully closed loop system to, have your glucose rise and then begin dosing, inherently it's the insulin's later and the insulin takes longer. So you are going to give up some performance. You're going to go a little bit higher. You're going to be out of range a little bit longer. And the game is to how do we minimize the performance loss versus someone that's proactive and, doing a mealtime bolus. So different users make different decisions, and it's been interesting to see the reactions of people where going from precise carbohydrate counting to a meal estimation system where you have 3 buckets. Some people aren't happy giving that up, as we've seen kind of the knob turners and everything really want that level of control, but a lot of people love it. And so fully closed loop is that next level where now you can't even do that upfront meal bolus. You have to wait for the system to do it for you. And you will have a little bit of performance loss unless you have a bi-hormonal system where you have a risk mitigation where if you give too much upfront, you do have the brake on the other side of the gas, which is nice. So there's a lot more you can do in a bi-hormonal context than insulin only.
Yeah, and I forget, I'm sure Ed told me all about this, but in a bi-hormonal pump, in the one Beta Bionics is working on, is this a device where you would announce meals, or it would just be completely automated, no announcing meals?
The system they've tested up to now has still had the same meal announcement interface that we have today. Users don't have to. We recommend you do that because you get the best performance with that. But in a bi-hormonal system, it doesn't take away the ability to announce your meals, but that's your choice. We could develop one where we take that away and we develop a fully closed loop system. That's something we're still discussing in the bi-hormonal program, whether we want to, you can just say I ate, or do you announce a meal as usual, or do you do nothing at all and you don't even have the ability to do anything at all? And that's something still for discussion.
Yeah. Well, you've got Tandem. They just signed another decade deal with University of Virginia. You've got Omnipod, Insulet working on their evolution algorithm where they've already seen 54% time in range with no bolusing with that algorithm. You've got Medtronic working on a fully closed loop system. Why shouldn't Beta Bionics be worried about all of these insulin only fully closed loop algorithms that are in the works? To me, a bi-hormonal pump that asks for meal announcements is almost a step back because you need 2 hormones and you're still announcing. So kind of how are you gauging what's coming and kind of your actions?
Yeah, it's really about meeting user needs, and users do have different goals, right? So if you want to get an A1C of under 6 and have very low hypoglycemia risk, you may have to announce meals. If you want, an A1C under 7 and, a bi-hormonal system and do nothing on the product except fill the insulin and the glucagon, that's absolutely possible as well. So there are a lot of potential solutions, and, we love to have conversations with our users, and we want them to tell us what they want. So we can build anything, and we're confident we can do it faster than anyone else. But we want to make sure we're building the product that people really want to use day to day. And there's a lot of layers to the burden. And even in the fully closed loop, it's funny. We look at what we have today where we have several loops that no one else has. It's these settings optimizers that are built into the product. So you don't have a carb ratio you have to change. You can't change it. You don't have a sensitivity factor, a basal rate. That's something the system learns automatically. And the longest loop in this whole diabetes journey is the 3-month going to your endocrinologist cycle. And I know not all users wait, and a lot of them change their own settings, but that is the longest loop out there. And it's clear that those have to be optimized to get the most out of a system. And in our system, so in our clinical results, in our clinical study, when you look at the other pivotals of the other products, they have great final numbers, either time in range or mean glucose, but none of them have a dramatic reduction from their baselines. Our product, That's really where the magic comes in, is you don't have to go into 18 clinical visits to optimize settings before you get the best outcomes. We just put it on you, and we bring people in the 14s down to an A1C close to 7 and have a 7% A1C reduction. That has never happened before. And the way you get that is you have to have the system do more automatically. And it's these levels of automation that's built into our product that no one else has, that we feel are critical to the fully closed loop journey. And if you're just taking away meal announcements, but you still have settings that are wrong, you're not going to get great results. So there's a lot of catching up to do that they have to do there.
Yeah, there's absolutely a large market of people for a pump like this. And it's great that people who don't want to put in as much work or thought into their diabetes and really just want to live, that they have this option to just put something on and see great results. So I'm glad a device like this exists. Did you say tubeless? Did you bring up a tubeless pump before? What's that all about?
Yeah, so obviously form factor is a driving choice for a lot of people. It may not always be algorithm first and form factor second. So that, how this device fits into your life is critical, right? We recognize that. So the way we bring product design choices to market when we're considering what the right product is we really need to think user first, and how do we make that experience easier than anyone else has come up with so far. So, we're pretty excited about what we're designing right now and the speed at which the team's going. But it's going to be a 2-part durable disposable. Sounds like more for a user, but what you have to think about is all the things that are actually less. You've used an Omnipod before, and you have to pair each Omnipod. Your settings list becomes cluttered with all the different Omnipods you've cluttered up your iPhone Bluetooth list with, and you have to go manually delete those, and you don't know which one is your currently active Omnipod. We're envisioning our system where you have a durable that you fill the disposable, you attach the durable, you take the adhesive off, you put it in your body, deploy the cannula, and it's in closed loop mode. And that's it. You don't even have to use an app after the first time, unless you're pairing a sensor or you're announcing a meal if you want to announce your meals. So something to have such a simple change process where you're not pairing a phone every time, you're not going through a wizard every time, something that's just lightning fast to get your system set up and go about your day, and you're back in closed loop mode again, is the experience we're going after. So we're pretty excited about the patch pump that we're working on now.
Are you saying that there isn't a smartphone app controller, or how would you control this?
It's just, okay. In other systems, you have to get the phone out, you have to go through a pairing process to pair to the new patch, right? And all of this takes time out of your day, and it takes time managing a device that you shouldn't have to spend your life doing that. So we're looking at, the question is, what are all the things that you are doing that we can eliminate? And we can give you time back in your day. And this is an every 3-day event, right? So we wanted to make the product as friendly as possible and really reduce as many steps as we can that people have just gotten used to doing that you don't have to be doing. Well,
yeah, it is an every 3-day event right now, but you've got Medtronic's 7-day infusion set. You've got Tandem working on the SteadyFast 7-day infusion set. Is Beta Bionics working on a longer infusion set for both the current pump now, but also a tubeless one in the future?
Yeah, so the 2 different questions. So yeah, we are talking with our vendor who makes the infusion sets about wanting to get to that 7-day set as well. That would be its own kind of program and timeline. So absolutely something we're interested in. Anything you can do less often, and that weekly cadence is actually a really nice cadence to just have your set change day in a week. Although it doesn't always work out that way if things run out sooner. But as far as the patch goes, the trade-off there is insulin capacity. So, you're going to have a larger patch with a larger capacity if you go longer, and then your footprint on your body gets bigger. So that's something we're being careful of. We're going to start with the 3-day use case, and then, that's something we can always innovate and go after that. So it makes, that's one of those de-scoping decisions that if we say, look, let's just fast follow in that particular aspect, we can get to market quickly, let's go, and then we can always innovate and add features to it like that to reduce burden.
Amazing. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. This got into some stuff that I didn't even think we would really dive super deep into. So thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing at Beta Bionics. I love like the speed to which you're getting things out and the excitement that you keep bringing out in me. And just like the style of your pump and your apps, I love the way they look and the function. And it's just been really fun to watch.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's super great to have all this information get out to users about the different products, and it's a tremendous service that you're providing the community.
I am eager to see what Beta Bionics has coming out. I am so impressed with the speed to which they are bringing out these features, and I'm excited to see where it goes. If you want to learn more about the pump, I have a few other episodes you should watch. I've got a few episodes on YouTube just showing off the Beta Bionics pump, the last version. I interviewed Sean Saint, the CEO, about how the pump and the algorithm work. I spoke with Ed Damiano, the founder of Beta Bionics, about the bi-hormonal pump coming up. I also spoke with Mike Natter. He used the pump for a few months, and he tells us all about his experience with it. Thanks for watching the show. I'm Justin, and I'll talk to you later.